You didn't find this message by coincidence. There's a reason your heart feels tight when their name comes up. There's a reason you keep replaying the last conversation, the last look, the last moment before everything shifted. Their silence feels intentional, almost strategic, and it's been eating at you. You've asked yourself 100 questions. Did I say something wrong? Did they lose feelings? Are they hiding something? Or worse, are they simply done? Tonight, we're pulling back the curtain on what they aren't telling you, because the real reason they've been silent runs deeper than pride, deeper than ego, and much deeper than indifference. Only take what resonates with you and leave the rest behind, because this message is for those who feel it in their soul. As I tune into the energy around this connection, I can feel tension mixed with emotion. This isn't the kind of silence that comes from boredom. This is loaded, heavy, deliberate. The first card that reveals itself is the High Priestess. Immediately, this tells me there are secrets here, unspoken truths, things felt but not expressed. This person is holding back information. They are watching more than they are speaking. Their silence is not empty, it is calculated. They know something they haven't shared yet, and it feels deeply personal. They may be protecting themselves, or even protecting you, from something they believe could shift the entire dynamic. The second card coming through is the Moon. There's confusion clouding their mind, fear of the unknown, fear of how deep this connection actually goes. The Moon energy suggests late-night overthinking, emotional waves that rise when no one else is around. This person is battling their own insecurities. They may not even fully understand their own feelings yet. It's like they stepped into emotional territory they weren't prepared for, and instead of communicating that vulnerability, they retreated into silence. Now the Eight of Swords appears. This is powerful. They feel trapped, not necessarily by you, but by their circumstances, responsibilities, or internal beliefs. They might feel like there's no easy way forward. Every possible move feels complicated. So they've chosen the one option that requires the least confrontation, silence. But that silence is costing them peace. They feel stuck inside their own head. The fourth card is the King of Cups. And this changes everything. Beneath the quiet exterior is someone who feels deeply. This is not a cold person. This is someone who has emotions they struggle to express. They care more than they let on. They may even love more than they admit, but vulnerability terrifies them. Showing their true emotional depth feels like handing over power, and they don't know if they're ready for that. Then the Two of Swords surfaces. This speaks of avoidance, a decision they've been postponing. They are standing at a crossroads regarding you. Silence has become their shield because as long as they don't speak, they don't have to choose. But internally, they know they cannot stay in this suspended state forever. And finally, the Tower energy lingers around this situation. Something shifted. Something woke them up suddenly. It could have been a realization about how serious this connection truly is. It could have been fear of losing control. But whatever it was, it shook them. And instead of leaning into that awakening, they pulled back. This silence is not random. It is layered with emotion, fear, and realization. And as we move deeper into this reading, we're going to uncover exactly what they're too afraid to say out loud. Now we're going to unfold this fully, but in a way that brings clarity instead of just intensity. Because what you're experiencing isn't random silence. It isn't indifference. And it isn't as simple as they lost interest. The energy around this connection shows depth, conflict, and emotional pressure building beneath the surface. Their silence is layered. It has roots. And once you understand those roots, the confusion begins to make sense. Let's begin again with the High Priestess, because this is the foundation of everything. This card is about what is known but not spoken. It represents someone who is deeply aware of their feelings but chooses not to express them yet. Your person is not confused about whether this connection matters. They know it does. What they are conflicted about is how to handle that awareness. The High Priestess energy is quiet, observant, and emotionally intelligent. They have been watching, sensing, and processing far more than they have let on. There is something they want to say, a truth about how this connection has affected them. But they fear that once they say it, the dynamic shifts into something more serious, more defined. Silence keeps things suspended. Silence keeps the intensity contained. Speaking would mean stepping into vulnerability, and vulnerability feels risky to them. So they hold it in. They convince themselves they need more time. They wait for the right moment. But the truth is, they are waiting to feel safe. Now, when the moon appears alongside this energy, it tells us that their internal world is not calm. They are in emotional fog. One day they feel certain that reaching out is the right thing to do. The next day fear creeps in and they question everything. The moon is insecurity, anxiety, and emotional shadow. This person is battling their own doubts. They may question whether they are ready for something deeper. They may question whether they can give you what you deserve. They may even fear that if they open up, they will lose control of the situation. There are likely past experiences influencing this reaction. The moon often points to emotional wounds that haven't fully healed. If they have been hurt before, betrayed before, or made to feel vulnerable in a painful way before, that memory lingers. It whispers caution. It tells them to protect themselves. And even though this connection feels different, their subconscious still reacts as if it needs to be guarded. The Eight of Swords shows how trapped they feel in their own thoughts. This is not peaceful distance. This is mental overactivity. They replay conversations. They analyze your tone. They question your intentions. They draft messages in their head and then imagine worst-case responses. They overthink so much that taking action feels overwhelming. So instead of doing something imperfect, they do nothing at all. This card also shows self-imposed limitation. They believe they are stuck. They believe circumstances are complicated. They may feel like external factors make it difficult to move forward. Responsibilities, expectations, timing, or even fear of judgment could be part of this. But more than anything, they feel stuck between what they want and what they fear. And when someone feels emotionally cornered, silence can feel like the only safe option. What makes this harder is that they are aware of how their silence might affect you. They know it creates confusion. They know it creates distance. But they don't know how to re-enter the connection without explaining themselves. And explaining themselves requires honesty. And honesty requires vulnerability. So they delay. Now the King of Cups is where we see their true emotional state. This card is deep feeling, emotional maturity, and genuine care. This is not someone who felt lightly. This is someone whose feelings grew quietly but steadily. They may not express affection dramatically, but their emotions run deep. The King of Cups often feels more than he says. And that is exactly what is happening here. They miss you. They think about you. They feel the absence of your presence in subtle ways. But they also pride themselves on emotional control. They don't want to look overwhelmed. They don't want to appear needy. They don't want to reveal just how much you affect them. So they maintain composure outwardly while carrying emotion internally. There may even be an element of pride here. Not arrogance, but fear disguised as pride. They don't want to be the one who reaches out first if they aren't certain how you'll respond. They don't want to feel exposed. So they wait. They observe. They try to read signs from you without directly asking. They want reassurance without having to request it. The Two of Swords tells us they are at a crossroads. They know silence cannot continue forever. They are aware that eventually they must choose how to handle this connection. Either they step forward and communicate honestly, or they let it drift further away. But right now, they are avoiding that choice. They are sitting in the middle, hoping time will clarify things for them. This card also shows emotional blocking. They may be numbing themselves slightly, distracting themselves, focusing on work or other responsibilities to avoid dealing with what they feel. But avoidance doesn't eliminate emotion. It only delays confrontation. And the longer they delay, the heavier it becomes to return. Then we come to the Tower, and this is the turning point. Something shifted inside them. It could have been a realization about how serious this connection feels. It could have been a moment where they recognized their own vulnerability. It could have been sensing you pulling back. But whatever it was, it shook their internal stability. The Tower is awakening. It's sudden awareness. And awareness can be overwhelming. When they realize that this connection has the power to change their life, to demand growth, to require emotional responsibility, it scared them. Instead of leaning into that change immediately, they pulled back to stabilize themselves. The real reason they've been silent is not lack of feeling. It is fear of transformation. They sense that this connection requires them to step into a more mature version of themselves. It requires consistency. It requires honesty. It requires emotional risk. And they are not entirely sure they are ready for that level of responsibility yet. But silence does not erase emotion. In fact, it often intensifies it. The more they try not to think about you, the more you cross their mind unexpectedly. The more they try to stay detached, the more they notice your absence. They may check your social media. They may wonder if you're moving on. They may imagine what it would be like to finally speak openly. Their silence is internal conflict. It is someone who cares but fears. Someone who feels but hesitates. Someone who knows the connection is meaningful but worries about whether they can handle its depth. It's important for you to understand something here. Their silence is not a reflection of your worth. It is a reflection of their emotional capacity at this moment. You triggered growth in them. You triggered awareness. You triggered feelings that required them to examine themselves. And not everyone is comfortable with self-examination. You may feel hurt. You may feel confused. But do not translate their silence into rejection of your value. The cards do not show indifference. They show fear, pride, overthinking, and emotional intensity. And here is the truth that sits at the center of all of this. They are afraid of how deeply this could go. They are afraid that if they speak honestly, they will have to show up differently. They will have to match your depth. They will have to risk their heart fully. And that level of openness feels overwhelming to them right now. However, these cards also show unfinished energy. The High Priestess does not stay silent forever when truth demands expression. The moon eventually clears. The Eight of Swords loosens when someone realizes they are not truly trapped. The Two of Swords cannot avoid a decision indefinitely. And the King of Cups cannot suppress genuine emotion forever. Silence is a pause. It is not closure. Your person is in a space of emotional processing. They are trying to gather courage. They are trying to decide who they need to become in order to handle this connection properly. They are trying to quiet their fears long enough to hear their heart clearly. And while they are quiet, the feelings have not disappeared. If anything, they have deepened. The longer they sit with their emotions, the more they realize this is not something they can dismiss easily. So what they aren't telling you is this: they are not indifferent. They are overwhelmed. They are not cold. They are cautious. They are not gone emotionally. They are internally wrestling with what loving you would require. The silence feels loud because the emotion underneath it is loud. And eventually, when emotion reaches a certain point, it demands movement. Whether that movement comes in the form of honest communication or a clear decision, something will shift. Because energy like this does not stay frozen forever. And the real reason they've been silent is because they are standing at the edge of vulnerability, deciding whether they are brave enough to step forward. And once they decide, the quiet will break. As we close this reading, I want you to hold on to one clear truth. Their silence is not empty. It's filled with emotion they haven't sorted out yet. It's fear of vulnerability. It's the weight of realizing this connection is deeper than they expected. What they aren't telling you isn't simple. It's layered, complicated, and tied to their own inner battle. But here's where your power comes back to you. You are not responsible for someone else's emotional readiness. You are not meant to sit in confusion forever. Their silence reflects their capacity, not your worth. You didn't imagine the connection. You didn't misread the depth. The feelings are real. They just don't know how to handle them yet. Trust your intuition. You already sense what's beneath the quiet. If this message resonated, take what feels true and leave the rest. Remember, you deserve honesty. You deserve clarity. You deserve someone brave enough to meet you where you stand. And whatever happens next, know this: real emotions don't stay buried forever. Sooner or later, the truth finds its voice.